Pawn advances to the center, immediately stake a claim, and open diagonals for future piece development. Opening up the bishop's diagonal and preparing for a flexible pawn structure. Seizing the center's breadth, this pawn advance immediately contests central space and opens diagonals for the queen and bishop, creating dynamic attacking possibilities. Challenging white's central grip with immediate pawn tension, black opens lines and ignites positional fireworks. Developing the knight here immediately challenges black's central pawn and prepares to contest the e5 square, hinting at an aggressive intention. Shielding the center and preparing to contest the open d-file, this knight finds a flexible home. Developing the knight to f3 continues white's harmonious central development and prepares for kingside castling. Solidifying the pawn chain, black prepares to challenge the center with a later x4 or c5, creating a robust defensive structure. Securing the center and expanding space aggressively, white boldly stakes a claim in the heart of the board. Developing the knight to a natural outpost prepares for central pawn pushes and enhances piece harmony, offering robust defensive coverage. Opening the center with this pawn thrust creates immediate pawn tension and aims to restrict black's pieces. Preparing a queenside expansion, this pawn nudge aims to seize crucial space and potentially undermine white's central control. Developing the bishop to d3 solidifies the center and prepares for kingside castling, aiming to exploit the slightly cramped black queenside. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure and preparing for castling, this natural development allows black to maintain a flexible central presence. Securing the monarch initiates a strategic repositioning, preparing for future central skirmishes and knight outpost development. Safeguarding the king now, black prepares to join the central skirmish and develop the remaining pieces towards the action. Unlocking diagonals for the queen's bishop, this piece prepares for a central pawn push or a kingside expansion by solidifying the pawn chain. Liberating the c-file opens a direct line for the rook, initiating a positional struggle for control of the liberated territory. Opening the c-file aggressively, white seizes control of a crucial open highway for potential future assaults. Pushing the flank offers a territorial grab, but weakens the pawn chain's integrity and opens the queenside to potential infiltration. Strategically reinforcing the d4 pawn while preparing to expand on the queenside, a sensible choice to maintain central influence and develop pieces harmoniously. A clever redeployment, aiming to influence the crucial e4 square and prepare for potential advances on the queenside. Striking at the queenside flank immediately aims to disrupt black's pawn structure and gain space before developing further. Opening that queenside diagonal for the bishop and creating immediate counterplay on the file is a bold, double-edged decision. Securing the kingside space by preventing bg prevents immediate piece maneuvering issues. Developing the bishop to d7 solidifies the queenside pawn structure and prepares for a potential rc8 maneuver, adding pressure along the semi-open c-file. White aims to connect rooks and challenge black's queenside expansion. Unveiling the queenside, this positions the monarch to influence the central tension and prepare for potential pawn advances. Pouncing on the isolated pawn, this move aims to disrupt black's queenside structure and seize initiative. Initiating a knight maneuver towards the kingside, potentially setting up an aggressive kingside assault and exploiting any lingering weaknesses. Clearing the file and eyeing the queenside, white prepares to dominate open lines. Challenging the bishop's dominance, this knight boldly repositions to pressure white's central control, aiming for a dynamic exchange or creating escape squares. Sacrificing the bishop to dismantle black's pawn structure, creating potential outposts. Reclaiming material while opening the queenside diagonal creates immediate counterplay. Reclaiming the knight creates a strong outpost on b5, challenging black's pawn structure and potentially opening lines for white's pieces. Reclaiming the pawn is a necessity, though it opens diagonals that will demand sharp positional awareness moving forward. Reclaiming the initiative with this knight repositioning aiming to exploit the slightly open kingside for potential tactical opportunities. Sensing a potential blockade, the bishop retreats to a more active diagonal, seeking influence over the central squares. Unlocking the c6 outpost grants white significant control, yet sacrifices central dynamism. Recapturing the pawn solidifies your queen's position, while maintaining the threat of central control. Suddenly, the queens are eyeing each other, creating immediate tactical complications and forcing black to consider sacrifices for activity. Challenging the queen's dominance, black aims to activate their pieces and create counterplay along the open lines. Controlling the queen side and aiming to dislodge the active black queen. Opening the e-file endeavors to activate the rook and counter white's spatial control on the queen side. Asserting command of the central files, this move aims to consolidate pressure and prepare for a potential breakthrough. A sensible defensive maneuver, shoring up that crucial kingside square and preparing to contest the open file. This maneuver aims to reinforce the d5 pawn and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside, a solidifying operation. Reclaiming the d-file tension is paramount now. That knight is truly out of play. Reinforcing the center's control, this placement prepares for potential pawn advances or knight maneuvers. Seizing the open file, black aims to disrupt white's queenside and spark counterplay before white's central majority can advance. Opening the file for infiltration, though it relinquishes the important central pawn. Reclaiming the pawn with the queen, black now eyes white's potentially exposed king on the queenside. Exchanging queens now is a pragmatic decision, aiming to exploit the slightly exposed black king and potentially simplify into a favorable endgame. The rook now occupies a newly opened file, potentially threatening white's queenside structure. Liberating the b-file opens avenues for both rooks to become active participants in the ensuing endgame. Securing the open file with the rook reasserts central control and prepares for future challenges. Securing the king's safety becomes paramount as the queens depart, preparing for a potential rook endgame. Embracing space on the kingside, g5 aims to disrupt white's pawn structure and potentially open lines for black's attacking pieces. Shifting the king to the other side aims to secure a safer haven from potential threats on the open files. Seeking to activate the knight on c8 and prepare for a potential queenside pawn push. Shifting the king toward the center is a logical step to prepare for the endgame, consolidating white's forces. A bold, forcing thrust that repositions the rook to a more active square while creating immediate threats. Consolidating the rook on the third rank aims to stifle black's queenside initiative and prepare for a potential central pawn push, though it sacrifices some immediate attacking dynamism. Swapping off the rook simplifies the position dramatically, entering a queen and pawn endgame where material count is paramount. The knight's capture revitalizes the central pawn structure, opening avenues for piece activity. A welcome repositioning, aiming to infiltrate the weakened kingside and exploit the open lines now available. Reasserting central influence, this knight repositions to challenge black's d6 pawn and prepare for pawn structure shifts. Repositioning the bishop to a more active diagonal after the exchanges frees it to potentially target the white king's defenses. A timely repositioning to exploit the uncastled king and disrupt black's defense. Restoring the pawn structure after the recent exchanges, this bishop repositions for potential defensive duties or a more active diagonal sweep. The rook redeploys, activating itself on the open file, aiming to press black's somewhat awkward pawn structure. Attempting to create space for the king's safety while igniting a potential queenside pawn storm. Solidifying the center allows kingside pawns to advance and create counterplay. Bringing the rook to the open file creates immediate pressure and hints at a coming pawn push with g5. Pushing the rook to the 6th rank cramps black's position and prepares a powerful kingside invasion. Consolidating the rook on the open file solidifies black's defensive structure, preparing to challenge white's forward piece. Clearing the 7th rank allows for potent penetration and control. Controlling the crucial 7th rank for the rook, aiming to support the pawn push. The king's repositioning aims to secure a central outpost, bolstering white's endgame potential. Seeking to activate the rook on the open file, black prepares to contest the 7th rank. Contesting the d-file becomes paramount as the endgame beckons, demanding active piece play from white. Opening the kingside with pawn advances offers dynamism, but creates significant weaknesses for your monarch. Bringing the king into the fray to support the pawn storm, a bold decision.